Good afternoon, everyone. You're in the agency update for the Washington Student Achievement Council, and this is also called our spring training. Just giving people a few minutes to get signed in, and then we'll get started. Okay, it looks like the flow is slowed down a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Carla Idle Corwin, and I'm a Senior Associate Director here in the Student Financial Assistance Division at WASAC, and I'll be updating you today on legislative changes, wording, all the things. So glad you're all here, and want you to know that I'll be providing an update not only on the most recent legislative session, but also updates on ongoing implementation of legislation from last year. The session is being recorded and will be posted on our website. Please use the Q&A feature to pose your questions. There are multiple staff monitoring Q&A, and I will periodically pause to see if there are questions throughout the update. So kind of trying to group it in sections. I really want to thank all of you for making time to attend today's session. We recognize how busy this time of year is for everyone and appreciate your presence. And late breaking news, just to make sure everyone saw their email, the 2025-26 program manual for Washington College Grant and College Bound was published to our website today. Since we have a cross section of attendees and some that are new to this space, I wanted to explain that the Washington Student Achievement Council is governed by a 10-member council that you see on the screen before you. These members are appointed by the governor's office and represent broad perspectives related to the work that our agency does. WASAC strives to increase educational attainment so that Washington can meet its post-secondary attainment goal, that at least 70% of adults ages 25 to 44 within each racial and ethnic community and region across our state will have a post-secondary credential. Currently, an estimated 62% of Washington's adults have a credential beyond high school. Our work each day is focused on achieving this goal, and some of the components will be shown on the next slide. WASAC's efforts to reach 70% post-secondary attainment are rooted in our strategic action plan, which centers equity and maintains 4 policy clusters: affordability, enrollment, completion, and student supports, often called basic needs. By working in these areas, we believe that building an affordable and supportive educational environment will enable more Washingtonians to enroll in programs and complete post-secondary credentials. Our strategy and partnerships team diligently follows policy developments in these fields, and we welcome your collaboration in exploring them further. For example, my colleague Armin leads our work concerning affordability, which I know most of you realize ties very closely to financial aid. Now, I'm going to highlight some from the 2025 legislative session that just concluded. This was a long session, but they finished on time on the very last day. As you know, the state is facing a projected $16 billion budget shortfall for the 4-year outlook, as well as unknown changes and challenges at the federal level that impact the state, making this a particularly difficult legislative session and continuing on. The track on the screen may look familiar to some of you. There are many more bills introduced this last session that did not pass. The tracker in front of you lists the House bills that WASAC was tracking that did pass this session. And I'm going to go into more detail on the financial aid related bills in future. Oops, get that to advance. This is a list of the Senate bills that WASAC was tracking, including the final budget that was signed by the governor. Again, I'll cover the financial aid ones. Some I will cover in the legislative update section and some in the program section. I'm going to start with the budget in gross substitute Senate Bill 5167. For those of you that are not familiar, each year WASAC submits decision packages and agency request legislation for additional funding and initiatives. Our final submissions are approved by our 10-member council that I mentioned earlier. The table on your screen represents most of our budget and policy requests that were submitted last September. Our agency can only lobby for requests that are approved by the governor's office because we are a governor's agency cabinet. WASAC requested 3 bills and had 1 bill approved by former Governor Inslee's office. That bill, House Bill 1540, ended up passing the legislature. It supporting students experiencing homelessness. This was our one successful bill, as mentioned, and it does not include all of the initial request, but was successful in adding Northwest Indian College into the Supporting Students Experiencing Homeless program, providing just over $100,000 per year in support. This provides supports such as, but not limited to, access to laundry facilities, access to storage, access to locker rooms and shower facilities, reduced price lunch meals or meal plans, access to food banks, access to technology, access to short-term housing or housing assistance, especially during seasonal breaks, and case management services. A second bill, Senate Bill 5275, was introduced as non-agency request legislation, but did not pass the legislature. This bill would have made Passport to Careers, which supports youth who previously experienced unaccompanied homelessness or foster care, an entitlement program. A third bill, which would have made 65% median family income the permanent threshold to receive a maximum Washington College grant, was not approved or introduced. However, a different bill, Senate Bill 5785, did pass, which is relevant to this request, and ended up modifying awards for both Washington College Grant and the College Bound Scholarship. And I will cover that in more detail. As for the remainder of our budget requests that you see on this slide, we didn't get them. The media has talked about the fact that there is a significant shortfall and $16 billion over the next 4 years. We were pretty happy to have the small wins that we did. We understand how deep the cuts were that impacted not only our agency, but all of you and other sectors of the state. Oops, went too fast. This is a snapshot of the cuts impacting students and our education partners. As you can see, and many of you are experiencing firsthand, the cuts affected everyone. The graduate student loan program was completely eliminated, as were bridge grants. We saw reductions in other areas, and those are listed on this slide. And we will share the slide deck as well with you all. Some of the wins this session tie back to some of the bills that were on the tracker, the 2 trackers that I showed you earlier, and provide different supports for students. Sorry, making you guys dizzy with moving my screen back and forth. So these are the areas, and one such highlighted one is allowing GED recipients to be eligible to use College Bound. And so I'll talk more about that in a bit. But there's more than just about financial aid on this page, so I wanted to highlight that one in particular. Substitute Senate Bill 5785 made significant changes to the Washington College Grant and College Bound program phased in over the next 3 years. For 25-26, the 60% MFI was changed in statute. This means it's now part of the law. Previously, the MFI was set at 55% in statute and modified in budget proviso language ranging from 65 to 60%. And so this now puts 60% as the floor. The CPS change limits students to 6 years of eligibility from the date of receipt. If a student graduates in June of 2025 and begins college in September of 2025, the 6 years of eligibility begins then. If they wait to enroll until September of 2026, they would have 6 years from that date. However, they are still limited to 18 quarters of eligibility or the equivalent. 2026-27 changes, significant changes to Washington College Grant will shift costs to College Bound for those that are CBS eligible. Looking at 25-26 awards, for example, Western Governors University awards would be reduced by approximately $1,500, and our private 4-year not-for-profit WCG awards would be reduced by approximately $3,400, looking at 25-26 awards. granted, this is 26, 27, so that's why I'm saying these are just estimates. The Washington Grant Apprenticeship Awards are reduced to 50% of the CTC award amount, so cutting those awards in half. And so it is significant. Whoops, sorry. Make sure I got This bill eliminates eligibility for students at 2- and 4-year for-profit institutions for 27-28. The reduction for Western Governor students would be about $4,100. The private 4-year not-for-profit student awards would be reduced by about $6,300. Again, those are estimates because we don't have the tuition rates for those years yet. Moving forward, there are several other initiatives in progress from prior legislative sessions that I'm going to talk about in this next section. We are currently working on House Bill 2214 and implementation of that bill, and that expands eligibility for certain SNAP recipients to be automatically eligible for Washington College Grant. Beginning in the 2025-26 academic year, students who are a Washington High School student in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade and a member of an assistance unit receiving benefits under the Washington Basic Food Program or the Washington Food Assistance Program would be eligible for Washington College Grant without even filing a FAFSA. It is anticipated that first payments will begin in 26-27 with the notices going out to the students likely in January of 26, so the seniors in that year. We're currently working on options for securing the information and will provide additional updates as we have them. Another bill from last year was the Prison Education Program Bill, Senate Bill 5953. For the prison education programs, the cost of attendance and aid is restricted to direct costs such as tuition and fees, required books, course materials, supplies and equipment, and the cost of obtaining a license, certification, or first professional credential. WASAC will be sending out guidance to schools that are in various stages of applying for PEP approval. If you are a school that plans to submit or has submitted your PPA to the Department of Ed and are waiting to hear back from them, please send me an email to let me know that you are in the process. I do have a partial list of some schools from working with Department of Corrections, but I also know some schools initially started it and then backed out. Sorry, doesn't want to move. There we go. So in Washington State, we currently have one college who has been fully approved for the prison education programs, and that's the Evergreen State College. They're the first ones to notify me and provide a copy of their PPA and e-card showing the additional location. So we'll be sending out information regarding policy and processing updates for the PEP programs. There will be a paper WASFA provided for incarcerated individuals who are not eligible to file a FAFSA. There'll be 2 distinct forms labeled PEP WASFA. One will be for dependent students and one will be for independent students. WASAC can provide a PDF copy via email that colleges can print, or we can print some and mail them to the college. Once the student completes the form, it will be returned to WASAC by mail for processing. Because there are restrictions on the use of staples, paper clips, etc. in correctional facilities, it will be important that individuals include their name and date of birth on each page of the document to ensure the paperwork is all for the same person when being processed. And I'm going to pause here and ask if there are any questions from my moderator colleagues.
Hi, Carla. No questions so far, but feel free to put them in as we go along, everyone.
Please use the Q&A. All right, then. And there will be time for questions at the end as well. Just a few reminders and updates and new items related to College Bound and Washington College Grant. Washington College Grant and College Bound are guaranteed funding, which is like an entitlement, except the student must have need and cannot receive aid in excess of need. You cannot delay awarding a student until the end of the term or the year either. The median family income students may receive Washington College grant for up to a maximum of 100% MFI with prorated awards, or maximum awards for 0 to 60% MFI. College bound remains at 65% MFI. Registered apprenticeship programs that are approved by the Washington State Apprenticeship Training Council are eligible to apply and participate like colleges do. There was a session held earlier today, and there's another one, I believe, next week I'll highlight in a bit for more information on apprenticeship programs and the process. When uploading awards and payment requests, so moving on to more of the mechanics and the operations, when you're uploading awards and payment requests, there is no more full file upload. So while you can load all students using the incremental file, we have now moved to the incremental file process as of this spring. Also, for 25-26, you are required to use the same income offsets for state median family income calculations as are reported on the FAFSA. They're listed here on the screen before you. If you see conflicting information, you would need to resolve it. For example, if a student reported taxable student grant and scholarship aid reported to the IRS in their AGI, but they are non-filers, that is clearly conflicting information. We've received many questions about students who are WCG eligible but have no remaining unmet need due to other financial assistance such as scholarships, etc. These students are not eligible because Washington College grant cannot exceed need. Couple of other reminders, it's really important that you request funds through the WASAC portal at the beginning of each term to ensure students receive the full award amount they're eligible for. We're seeing a lot of schools requesting the funds at the end of the term or later, and at that point, the student didn't meet SAP. Also, colleges need to reconcile and request funds in a timely manner. If colleges are floating disbursements and then weeks later requesting funds, if the student's not eligible for a number of reasons, the college cannot request the funds once a student is no longer eligible, with one exception that I'm going to cover in a couple of slides. It's, again, really important that when you're reconciling your student accounts with your financial aid system, your accounting department, and with WASAC award data, all those pieces need to line up. You all have been doing enrollment intensity for the last year and reporting credits, number of credits, and that will continue. So thank you for all of your efforts on that. And the enrollment intensity charts, there will be new charts made available soon under the resources section of our financial aid FAA resources section of our webpage, and I'll give you that web address here shortly. And some of you are really paying close attention and have reached out because you've noticed that the 0 to 65% MFI for 24-25 for a family of 4 is the same amount as 0 to 60% MFI is for 25-26. This is in fact accurate and not a typo. I think so many of us got used to hearing that a family of 4 making up to $78,500 could receive the maximum award last year, that value made you question the charts when they were published this year. We really appreciate your attention to detail and how you are paying close attention in spite of all that you have going on that we recognize. One important area that I want to highlight pertains to the distinction between retroactive awards versus late awards. We've provided a couple of examples on the slides before you, and there are several in the WCG CBS program manual as well. If a school has opted to use the census policy versus the state repayment policy, the student would be eligible for whatever they were enrolled in as of the census, even if they later dropped, if it was a late award due to institutional error. This is the exception I mentioned earlier on slide 24 related to timely reporting of awards. So a retroactive award is when a student submits their application or completes their application late, and you're just now reviewing, versus a late award is where there's an institutional error and the student may have been awarded, let's say, Washington College grant, for example, and then later you're going back to award College Bound or Passport, and suddenly the student's enrollment had changed. That student would be eligible for whatever award they would have been eligible for at the time the WCG was done for the, so it'd be Washington College grant if they were full-time, then their Passport would be full-time, or their College Bound would be full-time, even if they had changed credits. And so wanted to make sure that you understand the difference between the late and the retroactive. And we have a couple of slides for visual presentation. So this is the example of a retroactive award and what the outcome is. This is a visual presentation of the late award and the outcome for the student. And so census comes into play. And because schools have the opportunity to choose between following the state policy and or having a census policy and aligning with the federal policy, that comes into play. So it's important to know what your policy is and what you're doing. Schools are allowed to use institutional methodology to prorate SAI. In this instance, if you adjust one element, you need to adjust all to be the same duration when calculating a student's eligibility. You will need to be prepared to provide the revised figures on your unit record when you complete it in the fall. If you use a 6-month SAI, you will use a 6-month cost of attendance. And I alluded to this earlier, this legislative session, Substitute Senate Bill 5785, modifies CBS and defines the 6-year eligibility window, which is in addition to the award amount changes covered in the legislative changes I talked about earlier. Eligibility concludes when the student has used 18 quarters or their eligibility window closes, whichever comes first. If the student has remaining time on the clock but has used all 18 quarters of eligibility, they are no longer eligible. So there are 2 clocks for college bound only. There's one where they must enroll by 1 year from graduation, which is technically 15 months. If they graduate in June, they must enroll by September of the following year, 15 months later. They can enroll earlier, that they are allowed to enroll sooner, but that's their enroll by date. And then their eligibility window starts from the date of receiving an award. So that was the example. If they start in September of 2025, that's when their 6-year window starts. So it is a little different than how it was processed for 24-25. It was a technical correction. Senate Bill 5543 is the legislation that passed regarding making students with a high school equivalency certificate, most commonly called the GED, eligible for college bound. And so we are in the process of developing the guidance and the processes and updates to the portal and all the things. So expect more information to come on this particular change. And we have to have it implemented by July 27th. That's when the effective date. So we can't implement it early, but that is the effective date. So definitely watch your mailboxes, your email boxes, and for guidance letters that will be coming out from us regarding this new change. For college bound, you are supposed to award, you're required to award Washington College Grant and Passport to College before awarding CBS. We've noticed some irregularities in this awarding, and so just want to make sure people realize that that is the process. Students lose out when they're awarded after the term starts if they drop or don't meet satisfactory academic progress. Timely funding assists with persistence and completion. This year, with Passport awards being lower, some institutions may be awarding Washington College Grant Passport and still have some eligibility for college bound. In the past, it was more at our private schools, but now we expect we probably will see that even more at the publics. Passport awards are going to be $2,000 for the 25-26 award year. So the coordination of all of the benefits is even more critical to ensure that the college bound commitment is met. Schools do have the option for satisfactory academic progress to follow the state satisfactory academic progress policy, but are now allowed to align with the federal SAP policy that was instituted in 24-25. Federal policy is not outlined in the Washington College Grant College Bound Program Manual, but the chapter that in the Federal Student Aid Handbook is referenced. Colleges must select which policy they will follow and apply the same policy consistently to all state aid recipients. Some other operational considerations. To provide reliable real-time reporting will continue quarterly. The Caseload Forecast Council relies heavily on us for all of the reconciled data you provide, predictive cost modeling to inform the legislature, to complete predictive cost modeling to inform the legislature of anticipated costs. 24-25 was the first year we had to rely on supplemental operating budget funds to cover expenditures for both Washington College Grant and College Bound. And I'll admit, I was sweating it at one point. This was the first time in the history of the program that this had occurred. Your timely reporting of awards and requesting payments have been crucial for informing the Office of Financial Management and legislative budget writers of the projected shortfall. We appreciate and plead with all of you to complete your payment requests and reconciliations on a monthly basis, in addition to the required quarterly reporting. Again, making sure you're reconciled across all of the departments and not just the financial aid system. Thank you to everyone for getting your funds requests submitted in a timely manner. There is currently only one institution that has reported less than 75% of their funds being expended at this time, while everyone else is 90 to 100% expended in reviewing awards reported versus funds drawn. And I can tell you, when I pulled that number last year, it was significantly lower. So the fact that we only have one institution that is less than 75% is amazing. You guys are phenomenal. The 24 and 25 aid, 24, 25 and 25, 26 aid years will be open at the same time. Schools can start requesting 25, 26 Summer One funds after July 1st if their PPA is complete, program participation agreement is complete. I realize I'm using a lot of acronyms, but there may be some non-financial aid types in here, so my apologies for that. Be aware that some edits might not be applicable, so please review your file and edits after your 24-25 is closed. Please make sure that you are reconciled across all records, again, student accounts, business office, financial aid system, and Seesaw records here with WASAC. Fall funds will not be available if you have not returned all prior year funds. So we are making Summer One funds available, but fall will not be if you still have outstanding funds due to be returned for the 24-25 year. If you run into any issues, please contact us. We worked with our caseload with our forecast council and research teams to adjust interim reporting dates based on the required needs of completed data. These drive some of the forecasts that then go on to the official forecast council, and they make decisions based on that. Doing so last year allowed us to push some of these deadlines out a bit to hopefully cut down on the amount of extension requests that we receive. We have maintained this later timeline for this year as well. The interim reporting period is open for 4 weeks, so please don't wait until it's due to submit. We have to have time to review and resolve all edits, and it's really critical that schools complete their interim reports on time. Also very important that you respond to calls or email inquiries from program staff regarding your reports and data, because if one school is incomplete, it holds up the whole bulk of the data. So that's why we tend to reach out and try to get things resolved with you. Just a friendly reminder, the unit record report happens soon. And as you can see on the screen, there are 3 trainings coming up in late July and throughout the first half of August. So know that that one's there. And I forgot to mention the final interim report did open today. So most people tend to get that one done before they then tackle the unit record. So just helping you think ahead to the different dates you've got coming up. If you're looking for information such as awarding and MFI charts, the program manual, guidance, etc., you'll find it all on the website on the slide at the bottom right-hand corner. We also have additional resources here, including financial aid training and recorded webinars. The spring training session recordings will also be posted here. The program manual for Washington College Grant for 25-26 is parked right at the top. This screenshot wasn't taken when it got taken after it got posted. So it's there because I was out there using it a little bit ago. And again, I'm going to pause for questions.
We do have a couple questions out here. The first one is, WCG can exceed need for WCGC students though, correct?
That is correct. And we're going to cover WCGC next.
Woo, way to go. And then the second one, I think you already had a slide about, but just to reiterate, will schools be able to continue to use prorated SAIs for the 25-26 school year?
Yes, you will. Prorated SAI and prorated cost of attendance.
That's it.
Okay. On we go then to Washington College Grant Connect. And so this is one, Washington College Grant is one program with many pathways to access it. WCGC is the acronym or the name used for aid awarded to students who qualify for WCG via an alternate path. And I'm going to provide the specific programs currently approved in an upcoming slide. It's not a separate pot of money, it's all one pot of money. So think of WA Grant or Washington College Grant. So the official name is Washington College Grant, but for branding purposes, you'll also hear it called the WA Grant because it is for more than just college. And for some, we did some marketing research and expanded marketing, and we found that the term college in the name threw some people because they didn't realize it could serve for more than just college. So that's why you use it interchangeably, but the official name is Washington College Grant. So one program, but currently 3 different ways to qualify. Remember that the WA Grant name evolved as a result of ongoing marketing and review that it is for more than just college. You'll see it called WA Grant, Washington College Grant, and Washington College Grant Connect, as well as Washington Grant for Apprenticeship. But again, it's all one pot of money, just different ways to get there. There are 3 different pathways to access Washington College Grant Connect. One is the legislative mandated path, which is the green column on the screen before you. And the newest path is as a result of House Bill 2214, and that's the one where I was explaining that beginning in 25-26, if you are a Washington high school student in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade who is a member of an assistance unit receiving benefits under Washington Basic Food Program or the Washington Food Assistance Program, you will be eligible beginning in 26-27 for Washington College Grant. The second pathway is called the WASAC approved pathway, and that's where our agency determines if the students in a particular benefit program meet income eligibility requirements. And currently we have the Economic Security for All, or EXA program, in this pathway. The final pathway is called the pilot pathway, and that includes where a college can apply to our agency to participate in a pilot based on data that the college has that indicates the student meets income eligibility requirements. There are not currently any participants in this pathway. And a reminder, students still have to meet other criteria to qualify for Washington College Grant. The Washington College Grant Connect, there are lots of reasons why students should complete a FAFSA or a WASFA, but it's a high initial barrier. And so WCG is about being able to lock in part of their financial aid as a guarantee very early in the process, and then providing support to access other financial aid by then encouraging them to complete the FAFSA or the WASFA to provide comprehensive aid packages to support more than tuition. WCGC is guaranteed for one full academic year. So we're not going to cut somebody off in the middle of an academic year if they start in April, for example. Their eligibility would then go until summer of the following year. So we don't want to get somebody started and then pull the rug out from under them. And just a reminder that students in the Washington College Grant Connect pathway still have to meet the basic eligibility criteria listed on the screen that apply to all WCG recipients, regardless of which program under the umbrella. WCGC students must receive the maximum award. So this is answering that question that was posed. If a student filed a FAFSA or a WASFA, but they're above the 60% MFI, their awards must be based on the maximum regardless. And so we've seen this happen even in current populations where a student is independent for determination of their public benefit programs, such as housing, but they're dependent when filing a FAFSA or a WASFA, and perhaps their parents' income puts them over the 60% threshold. That student is still entitled to a WCGC award at the maximum award level. I'm going to give you just a couple bits of information on apprenticeship, and I do encourage you to attend the apprenticeship sessions if you are interested. This is preliminary data for Washington College Grant and Wabridge Grant awarded to apprentices for the 24-25 award year. In 25-26, the community and technical colleges will pilot awarding Washington College Grant for apprenticeships at a few of their campuses. The figures on the screen before you are a significant increase over the 23-24 number of apprentices served and awards with continued growth expected. In 23-24, they awarded $2.7 million for approximately 836 apprentices. Currently, for 24-25, they are at $8.6 million that was distributed to 2,380 apprentices so far. But this is preliminary data because the award year is still active. The information on the screen is about the session that is next week, and they'll also add additional sessions regarding WGA over the courses of the summer as they prepare to roll out the pilots at the community and technical colleges. Passport to Careers, Passport to College is another program that has grown tremendously. And so we did ask for money in this last legislative session, but did not get it. And so, and we also do not have the additional 1 million that was provided in the last biennium. However, our agency has decided to use some internal funds from the State Education Trust account to provide $500,000 additional dollars to be awarded to Passport students. And that's what's represented in the 25-26 allocation listed on the screen. This program has expanded significantly in a relatively short time period. Prior to the Passport expansion, the number of eligible students was limited to those who had been in state foster care for at least 1 year after their 16th birthday and had emancipated from care. Now students can have various types of foster care or any amount of time after their 13th birthday, or they could have experienced unaccompanied homelessness. I point this out just to show you how many students are being served and how much money the state has invested in the program, but also to recognize the added work that you, as financial aid administrators, are taking on to support this population of students. We are seeing a continued increase in the number of students being served and are currently serving about 30% more students in 24-25 than we served in 23-24. These numbers are not final, so we do expect to see potentially even more with summer 2 enrollments that are ongoing. As you can see from the money on the screen, there's a great deal of funding that has gone into this program. While we know it's never enough, it is still, it's a phenomenal program with great demand. Gonna pause for questions here.
So far, nothing.
All right,
Let us know.
is everybody still with me? I hope so.
Oh, got one just popped in. Okay.
Okay.
So it has been mentioned that state funds, along with other funding, if federal Pell Grant is awarded, must be reduced if over need. Are you saying that we can exceed need if only awarding WCGC, but if Pell or other federal aid is awarded and need-based, we would need to reduce WCGC?
You are correct. It is restricted to need the minute a student receives $1 of need-based aid, whether it's federal or state.
Thanks, Carla. That is it for now.
All right, moving on. Gonna highlight some positive news in the state work study realm. So as a result of the 2025 legislature, state work study received an additional $200,000, pardon me, for 25-26. It's been at 7.8 million for years. And so this is a little bit of an increase, and that is to help with the ongoing support for legislation that passed last year that I'll talk about in a moment. There have not been any changes to the employer matching requirements or state work study reimbursement rates. For-profit organizations remain at 40% state work study reimbursement, 60% employer match. Public and private on campus, as well as governmental agencies, 60% state work study reimbursement, 40% employer match. Nonprofit organizations, school districts, and businesses whose primary business activity is in the field of science, technology, and engineering mathematics, the maximum is 70% state work study reimbursement and 30% employer match. As governed by the legislature, DSHS modified its rules on SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as Basic Food. Work study students are eligible to apply for basic food if they are awarded work study funds and are either actively earning those funds or are anticipating earning those funds in the upcoming term. Work study students are excused from the 20 hours a week SNAP requirement while participating or anticipating participation in the work study program. And this is a recap of the 2024 legislation that passed that changed that permits employer matches rates up to 100% for very select employers and positions. And this is tied to that $200,000 increase that we've received for 25-26. Just a reminder, it's almost the end of the year, and so year-end reporting is upon us. Your reports are due July 15th, so please make sure you submit them on time, if not early. And that drives the administrative allowance that is then sent back to the schools. There was a state work study session offered this morning, and a recording will be posted on our website in the next couple of weeks for anyone that was unable to attend. These are the key areas covered in that session in more detail. Some really great news. Earnings are higher than they have been in the last 13 years in the state work study program, which is really, really a good thing. If you're looking for your 25-26 initial allocations, you can view them in the portal. And if you have questions, you can reach out to the state work study team. Their email address is listed here on the screen. And many of you have completed the program participation renewal process, and this is active and ongoing as we speak. Colleges were notified of their renewal process requirements via email on May 20th with an original deadline of June 15th. WASAC seeks to make renewal determinations for all institutions prior to July 1, but institutions approved after this date are approved retroactively to July 1. Please note that since the program manual was posted after May 30th, institutions may request an extension to the deadline that's today in writing by emailing Marla Skelly, Associate Director of Compliance. Continuing on with other initiatives and resources provided by us, some reminders about what all we have to offer. We continue to work on providing templates to colleges for promotion of possible SNAP eligibility for students who are likely eligible. Amy Magasos from our strategy and partnerships team leads our basic supports cluster and has been the champion of this initiative. If any of you need copies of the letter templates, please reach out to us. An additional resource that we provide, our agency continues to serve as a student loan advocate. You can encourage students to reach out if they are needing assistance navigating the student loan landscape with the return to repayment initiatives happening nationally, and or if they have other questions related to their student loans. The Washboard is a scholarship, it's our scholarship hub, scholarship search engine, and for 24-25, nearly $18.3 million in scholarships were offered with more than 3,700 available awards. So while it's not perfect, it's still providing a service. And more important details, contact information. So if you need to reach out to us, the best way to do that is to reach program staff by using the program mailboxes. Our mailboxes are monitored by multiple people in case someone is out of the office. And so we want to make sure that we're able to address your questions in a timely manner and not leave you hanging. So please don't hesitate to use those. And just another reminder on our website on the link that was provided earlier, that link has everything we push out there in terms of program manuals, additional guidance when new things happen and we have to update guidance, the award charts, the MFI links, all of our program manuals, And then there's also all the information on the other areas of our agency, because our agency is much more than just financial aid, and also our adult pathways where our workforce related programs are administered. And so with that, we're to the end, and now I've left time for more questions if anyone has them.
Yeah, if anyone else has anything else, let us know. We do have one question in here. And just so you know, Carla, I'm chatting with Debbie on this question. It is specific to state work study. And the question is, with increase to state work study, can you help us to understand why the CTC allocations were reduced by 40% for 25-26? And I know, yeah. Do
Yeah,
you know
I
the
don't
answer to
know.
that, or is
Yeah, I
that something we
do
need to
not
follow up?
know the answer to that. I would recommend they reach out directly to the state work study mailbox, because I
Great,
do not
perfect.
know that answer.
Great. Yeah, just let us
Any
know.
others?
Yeah, reach out to if you need that. Any other questions here? I don't see any other ones so far.
We'll give people a
Give
minute,
people a
and then
minute.
if no other questions come in, just remember that we will post a recording of this update, as well as provide a copy of the slides out to you all. And appreciate you taking the time to be here, and looks like we get to give you back a little bit of your time. So, any questions?
Looking like none.
None? All
Yeah.
right then. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.